There we are.
Hey, look, it's that guy, and that guy, another guy, and another guy, and another guy. Wow. Is this an episode of Five Guys? Nah. Holy crap, what's that?
And that guy, and that guy.
Oh, wait a
Bunch of shitty-looking characters. I know that.
Oh, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it is. Hello, welcome to the Reloading Podcast here on the Firearms Radio Network. Tonight, we'd like to take time to thank Sean and the gang for giving us a place to hang out. Hi, Sean. Hi. Firearms Radio Network. Want to thank Jake and Ryan over at Patriot Patch Company for the bandwidth sponsorship. That's patriotpatch.co. And then some Target company out in Idaho. I don't know. Somebody may have heard of them. I think it's Jason. What's that Target company now?
Like Bucknuts Targets or what was that name again? Buckeye. Yeah, that was it.
But how the heck can you have Buckeye Targets out in Idaho when Buckeyes are in Iowa or in Ohio? That don't make no sense. Anyway.
Drink a beer. It'll make more sense.
Probably not.
Travis, we love you, even though you're telling us to go do something rude to ourselves. It is anatomically impossible.
Unless you have ribs removed.
Oh, this is the wrong podcast for that.
I don't think I'm being creative enough.
I just looked in the chat and John Atkinson's got a good name for it in there. Dang, they're even slamming you in the chat, Travis.
Wow.
On a serious note, BuckeyeTargets.com. Awesome steel. Awesome paper targets. Just some great quality stuff. Check them out. BuckeyeTargets.com. Travis, what's that coupon code?
That would be Reloading Podcast. Oh, sorry, just Reloading. And that coupon code should be good for all of our other guys we've been dealing with. Mighty Armory, Entirely Crimson, Freedom Seed Brass,
Yes.
Buckeye Steel. Let's go over there. Just type all that in. Get 10% off on all of those. Sorry, I'm trying to get over to where they're bashing me on the notes. So,
Hey, Jason, I think your phone ringer's on.
Yep. Sorry.
I have no idea how I figured that one out. Wouldn't have any idea on that one. No, not at all. The Navy guy's got a sonar ping. Anyway. So, for those of you who are tuning in live,
To another fiasco.
something like that. Anyway, so episode 223. No, we're not covering the 223. We did that already. We have a different cartridge for Cartridge Corner when we get there. But first, what's everybody done in firearms and reloading for the week? Jim?
Well, yesterday I had my ATF forms as in plural, as in more than one, two of them.
Shut up.
I had them photocopied and reduced down to wallet size, almost like, yeah, I see your finger, Mike. Well placed. But anyway, had the forms ones reduced down to wallet size, almost just spot like the old-fashioned wallet size pictures. And while I was at it, I also had the form ones actually copied. I had 3 copies made, front and back, full size. And of course, I'll keep my originals in my fire safe or the gun safe here at the house. And today, I had a major discovery. I found, well, actually, I didn't find it. My wife did. Give the girl lots of credit. I've been looking for this gun box for months. This is the gun box, the owner's box for my Ruger SR40, SR40C, whatever. Anyway, yeah, it's like of all the places I looked around the house, in the garage, and buried in my shit, and turns out it was in the most easy place to find, above the refrigerator in my camper. Wasn't even under lock and key. And it's like, well, she did good.
If the box was empty, there's no real need to have it under lock and key.
Well, there's ammo in it. There's a spare magazine. There's a magazine adapter, and there's also a magazine loader in there too.
Ah.
It'll get put in a safe place.
Excellent.
And that's it for me.
Sorry, I looked over in the show chat, and Taylor says, "I'm only up to 192 podcast. Has he gone shooting yet?"
Yes, Taylor, I have. You better.
But he hasn't reloaded yet.
I hate you guys. You know that's why I put up with you guys crap every week. I hate you.
Oh, that was awesome.
Oh, that guy just won the MVP award for the podcast.
Oh.
Here you go.
Okay. Ooh, that's enough shenanigans.
All right. Travis, what'd you do?
I didn't do a whole lot. Palmetto State Armory was having a sale on lowers.
Mm-hmm.
So I got over there and ordered 2 of the Space Force lowers.
Nice.
Yeah, they're pretty cool looking. I think they're still on sale for $39 right now. And then I set up the 1050 to start sizing and trimming more brass. So I've been working on that all week.
Travis, you make it sound like you didn't hardly do anything. I know when you're using a 1050 to trim and size brass, you're doing a lot of work. It's just the machine's doing it for you.
Yeah, the machine's doing it, yeah.
But it's a lot of work. Don't underestimate yourself.
It's hard. I scoop up brass and I pour it in the hopper and I pull the lever a couple of times and I scoop more brass.
Couple of times.
You talk about scooping up brass, I start thinking about scooping up Little Bunny Foo-Foo. Scoop.
Well, I wish I had some handy, but yeah, I got these, the ice scoops.
Yeah.
Those are perfect for scooping up brass.
Yep. Grain scooper, also called. You can buy them at Tractor Supply.
Yeah, they're perfect. I got a whole bunch of them and just.
It's not polite to brag in front of the guy that still only owns a single stage.
I don't think you do, Phil. I think you own a 650 by your dad, right?
By proxy, huh?
Yeah.
You'll get it eventually.
I'm not in a hurry to get it that way. But until it's bolted to my bench, it's still my dad's.
Exactly.
So, Phil, is your dad back up and reloading on that?
I have not honestly talked to him a lot. I've been tied up pretty severely like the last 5 to 6 days straight.
Kinky.
No. Not the one you like tied up Trumbo. I'm going to tell Kathy to friggin' settle you down, sir.
Only the guy from California would think of that one.
Yeah, not even going to touch that one. Not even with y'all's hands. Now, I left town first thing this past Thursday at like 2 o'clock in the morning and drove to Saluda, North Carolina for prepper camp. So I've been tied up through Sunday pretty late in the evening doing that. It was about a 10-hour drive up, 11 hours down, 2 days solid of 8 hour, two 8-hour days solid of classes on concealed carry, defensive tactics, living off grid, how to set up a homestead, everything you could think of related to prepping. It was really enjoyable. But the only thing I did gun related or take a couple classes on like a defensive carry tactics and everything was I carried every day, all day, everywhere. And I had to review all the laws and everything regarding conceal and open carry everywhere from Louisiana up to North Carolina, through Tennessee, through Alabama, and then back through Mississippi. So gun guy problems when you go on a trip. You got to look up 8 different state laws to make sure you're being in compliance. But legal heat is a godsend for that sort of thing.
Or handgunlaw.us.
That's another good one.
They
Point
go
is, it's a,
so that's even better.
yeah. Point is, it's a step I don't recommend anybody skip. Like if you have a concealed carry permit, or even if you just want to transport a firearm in your vehicle, it do you some good to go check up those state laws.
Mm-hmm. Travis, they no longer have the Space Force lowers. They're out. But if you're a Smith & Wesson M&P fan, they've got used law enforcement 40s for $279 right now.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was thinking about picking up.
Yeah, I looked at it, thought about it, realized my wife would use it to shoot me, and said no.
Yeah, I'm not really into the 40 cal. Sorry, Jim, but I have 5-gallon buckets full of brass. So I'm like, well, if I got that much brass, I probably should have something to shoot it with.
Well, I'll tell you what. Anytime you can pick up a 40 for less than $300, I got 2 of them, so I don't need more. But the point is, a 40 for less than, what was that place again you guys were talking about?
Palmetto State
Armory.
That sounds like a company based out of South Carolina.
Yes. And hey Phil, I got bad news for you.
How bad?
You might not get the press
What press?
from your dad.
Why? Did he say he's going to will it to my brother? He's not
He
going to
said
do
you've
anything
got a
with it.
brother, so that was the general indication that I got out of that. So
Yeah, but he likes me a lot better than my brother most of the time.
Yeah.
But yes, he loves to bring that up every time I have to remind him, I'm going to get it back eventually anyway. He's like, you have a brother.
Tough crowd. So Phil, what all were you doing?
Up at prepper camp?
Yeah. I mean, did you just show up and survive for 5 days, or was there more to it than that?
Well, prepper camp kind of takes on a dual nature. You end up during the day they have 8 hours of 1 hour blocks of classes, and like I said, I took classes on like active shooter response, which related to a lot of triaging and trauma. Took a class on concealed carry tactics, which wasn't as evolved as I thought it was going to be. Took a class on nuclear, biological, chemical, and the attacks and the after effects and kind of how those type of events propagate. Took a class on trying honestly drawing a blank on some. It took a couple of classes on like more primitive wilderness survival and homesteading, how to live off grid, how to set up a home and a homestead that would actually survive off grid. But like I told y'all, the one glaring oversight I saw was at prepper camp, there was not a single class on reloading your own ammo, which I think I'm going to contact the event organizers to see if I can swing them on the idea of hosting that class. Because
Absolutely. Phil, the one thing I wanted to say without busting your chops is sounds like you probably should have taken notes on the classes you took. Very good.
I did take notes. I haven't taken any time to read them because I was off work Monday and I spent the entire day cleaning gear, cleaning a tent, doing laundry, cleaning boots, and then I went back to work this morning. So I haven't had, quote, a day off to review everything that I took notes on, but I did bring a notebook out there.
Like I said, I wasn't busting your chops at all.
Oh, no, yes, you
Hey,
were.
Jason.
Yes, sir.
He wrote stuff down.
I know how to, you know what? This is a funny little thing. Louisiana public school system, they teach you how to write and read in English.
Did they teach
Quite
you what
impressive.
this means?
Yes.
Good.
Did they teach you what senility is? Because you're going to reach it before I will.
You sure about that?
100% positive.
We'll see.
If you survive that long, Phil.
Don't make me call your wife. She'll agree with me. Just a bust on you.
Keep on ticking off Carl. Keep on ticking off Carl, and you won't reach this.
Mm-hmm.
I gave my granddaughter. There's no wrong I could do to overwhelm all that.
Carl, we're on your side, buddy.
Yeah, all you old guys stick together.
So, Jason, what were you up to?
Not much. we're getting ready to go to Nevada to long range shoot this month. So I was kind of getting my utility trailer finished up so I can load Travis's dueling tree in it and my gong that he gave me and take it out there and whack at it for a while.
Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa! You keep that to yourself. So you're finally gonna scratch that paint, huh?
Yep, I'm gonna scratch that paint.
So you got your scope and everything all figured out that you're gonna take?
The scope is on. I was looking at throw levers today or yesterday whenever you sent me that message. I'll probably order an aluminum one. I gotta hurry. I should do it tonight because I'm running out of time. But definitely need a throw lever. The SWFA adjustment is so freaking tight. It's you couldn't do it with gloves on.
Yeah, I have a throw lever on every one of my scopes. All these vortexes, they're probably the same. They're hard. So
Mhm.
without a throw lever, it's miserable.
Right.
But Amazon, they've got some pretty good throw levers on there. If I would have known, I ordered the wrong size and just sent it back right before we listened to that episode we talked about throw levers.
And so my shooting buddy Terry Dillashaw called me the other day, and so I went over there. He's got some painting he wants done. That's why I went there. But we ended up talking a little bit of reloading and going over the reloading program. What's that called? Quick loads. Again, to make sure he understands what he's doing. He's going to work up a load. He's getting ready to go elk hunting, so he needs something for his 7mm. So I kind of helped him out with that. And that was about it for me.
That sounds busy enough. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to do jack. I had a out-of-town funeral on Saturday, so that was all day Saturday, and then Sunday was get all the crap done that should have gotten done Saturday. So I did get a little reloading in. I just sat down for about 20 minutes and pulled the lever on the 550 and cranked out some 9. So at least I got that. So that was about it.
Phil, when are you going to load up those 9mm projectiles I sent you?
Don't you need to harass Trumbo about shooting your targets first? I've only had those bullets for like a couple weeks. And I shot my targets almost immediately. Soon, Travis, soon.
Touchy,
Maybe.
are we? Touchy.
I'm just giving it back to him. The same thing he's giving to me. But no, probably this weekend. I do need to sit down and reload a little bit of 9mm. Everything for the last month has been leading up to and get ready for prepper camp. And now that I'm finally past that, I can go tend to some overdue items like reloading.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what you thought about them.
I mean, I'm just a cursory glance. They look good. I'm gonna weigh them for consistency and spot check them with calipers. But
man, that OCD is really kicking in, isn't it?
dude, I do that with everybody's bullets. It don't matter. It ain't like I'm gonna weigh every last one in the bag, but yes, I do spot check them. Yes, I'm very OCD. We know this. Move on. I'm not as bad as a friend of mine though. He claims he has CDO, which is OCD alphabetized.
Jeez.
Do you guys go that far on your pistol stuff? You weigh them out and mic them and everything?
No.
Nobody probably does.
Nope. I reload my bullets as I cast them. Exactly as I cast, except for the coating of tumble lube.
See,
Do
the
you
only
let 'em
reason I
cool
dropped a
off
couple
first,
of
too?
I'm sorry, one at a time, guys. Jason, you were
Sorry.
first.
Do you let them cool off first, or you just grab them hot?
Grab them hot. Grab them hot and lubricate them.
Okay.
Then the lubricant cools, then I reload them.
That's the old school way.
Yep. How about you, Phil?
Now, see, for me, it's not that I am going to sit there and go through a whole bag and weigh every last one of them. It's more like a quality control step for me to make sure that when I ordered 124 grain round nose, it is 124 grain round nose.
Yeah, I was just
And
gonna
make sure
say,
that if the spec is like 0.355, I want to make sure they're really that big. It's just it's a weird thing with me. Once I verify that that batch of bullets is what I expect them to be, I load them.
Well, Phil, I'll tell you what. If you use a bullet cast from a Lee tumble lube mold, you won't like those bullets because the driving band is about 0.360, but the driving band is only about 70 thousandths wide. But it gives you good engagement into the rifling.
Yeah, and again, as long as that measurement is what I was expecting and is consistent, I'm okay with that. I'll try them. But my big thing is if I get like big variances in the weight or anything, that makes me nervous because it alludes to a quality control issue with the ammunition, and it makes me suspicious of the whole batch.
You need to start casting your own bullets. You'd be surprised about quality control and cast bullets.
I don't have time to cast my own bullets, Jim. Leave me alone. The last thing I need is to have like just 50-pound blocks of lead lying around my yard.
I want to be a prepper, so learn how to cast.
That's prepping. It's part of reloading.
That's right.
Part of it.
well, Phil, I gotta say though that I do think what you're doing is perfectly fine because it is a very good idea to check, make sure what you ordered or what you got is what you have.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially like with this big batch of bullets I got for free. A lot of that stuff I didn't know what any of it was. A lot of it was in like Ziploc bags and wasn't even marked. So I had to go through the set of calipers and measure it and weigh it, and
Yeah, but knowing you, I just figured you were gonna weigh every single one.
No, I'm not that bad. I will weigh a handful just so I can get an idea of how consistent the weight is from one to the next, and make sure that I am referencing the proper data. You know what I'm saying? Like if you give me a batch and you say these should be 135 grain, I'm going to make sure that they really are what you claim they are. Because if they're closer to 100, if they're a little heavier and I'm using data meant for a lower weight, I'm pushing the bullets harder and making more pressure. I just have to know for my own peace of mind I am referencing the proper data.
Yeah. Like Jim said, though, if you did start casting your own, let's say you did get a mold that was 124 grain, you might not be getting a true 124 grain. Depends on your alloy.
From batch to batch. Absolutely right, Travis.
So for pistol stuff, honestly, I just cast them, size them, call it a day.
Yep.
Jim,
Well, let me know what you think about those bullets. Tell me what you get. If they're with your up to your standards.
Yeah, it's just my standards are so much higher than everybody else's. I'm just anal retentive about my own practices.
Jason, you were saying something?
You got a question, Jim. John Atkinson asked if you size your cast bullets.
Oh. No, I don't, said John. No, I don't. I fire them as cast. As I drop them out of the mold, let them cool, while I'm casting or whatever. And then when I'm actually done, I'll actually put on some brown cotton gloves, pick them up. Yes, they're still warm, and start lubricating them. I do not size my bullets.
But that's because Jim's using a Lee tumble lube. They're not necessary to size the tumble lube. Well,
the tumble lube mold is a little tiny bit oversized, like I just named out to Phil. Well, like I use the Lyman 429, 421 mold for the Key semi-wad cutter, which it comes out averages about 245. But again, it also averages out about 0.430, 0.431 bullet diameter, which is okay for a cast bullet. And, and I don't necessarily use Lee tumble lube, Lee liquid A-LOX. Turns out liquid A-LOX is a generic name. You can use liquid A-LOX, which is nothing more than undercoating, the old-fashioned undercoating. Jason might remember it. I don't know if he's old enough, but old-fashioned undercoating they used to put under cars. And they thin it down with kerosene, of all things. And when the kerosene evaporates, you're left with a nice coating of sticky tumble lube. A lot of people put it on too heavy, and that's why they get the sticky coating. If you leave it where it's just barely visible, just barely golden brown, it'll actually harden up. But anyway, hope it answers your question, John.
Well, go kind of back on the casting stuff. If you did have a oversized projectile, and you load that up and you try to fire that, which is going to lead into our topic, I think.
It does.
You get over pressure on your brass,
or if you seat too deep. But you see, the thing is, Travis, these bullets are coming out of a mold, okay? And unless I get lead on the face of the mold, the bullets aren't going to be able to change their own diameter. And I would see the fins that I get, the flashes that I would get on the bullets, and I had it happen, and I immediately stop, clean the bullet, discard those particular bullets that are cast with and have fins on them, toss them back in the pot, and then I clean the face of the mold, clear off whatever the problem was, and start over that way. I'm talking about a known quantity, using a cast iron or aluminum mold, brass mold too. And your diameter will always be the same. It can't get any bigger unless you get careless. You know that from your own casting. But you're right about the oversized bullet causing pressure. But if your bullet is oversized to a certain point, a controlled point, the nominal diameter for the 44 Magnum caliber is 0.429. Nominal or desirable bullet diameter should be, in cast bullets, should be 0.430, 0.431, 1 to 2 thousandths oversized. Yes, if a bullet's 2 thousandths oversized, you need to start off and back off and be careful and work your way up to a good solid load. You're going to probably find it is a little high on pressure. Especially if you think you have to run that ear splitting Loudon-Boomer maximum load, you don't have to do that, guys. The funny thing is, you can't miss them fast enough to kill them. You can't miss that piece of paper fast enough. No, Travis. You can't miss that paper fast enough to put a hole in it. Sorry, I got carried away.
No, you're fine.
But anyway, Travis,
we love it, Jim.
You led up to a good point. We have a discussion that we've, yeah.
I was trying to segue. Is what I was trying to do.
Well, good job on the segue because I agree with you. Let's do that. We have had a question about overpressure. Phil last week had a thing with Carl. His dad had a case failure, and it was because of high pressure. High pressure. Well, they did some Phil and Carl did some troubleshooting, and I'm pretty sure they found the skunk in the woodpile. Phil, go ahead, take it away, please.
Yeah, well, like we were going into last episode, I'm fairly confident. Like I put my hand on a Bible at this point that the whole problem related to the overall length. Now, because we've taken those dies apart and cleaned them since this batch of ammo was loaded, it's impossible to say at this point if we were dealing with an issue of. I mean, it could have been a set of scratched dies, although I guess it could be after we reset the center stem. Even if the seating stem was scratched, we would have accounted for it by resetting that depth. But it could. I mean, it's impossible to say if we had debris in the top of the die or what caused it overall length to shrink. But I can say that the ammo is now, last I checked with my dad, being consistently made to a proper overall length. So he's gone back and culled all of his previous ammo, looking for anything else that was out of spec. He didn't indicate to me he really found anything else. So I think we're out of trouble on that one. But I mean, hell, you want to talk about pressure signs? I think that was the holy mother of them. Wrecked the case head so bad it wouldn't take a primer. blew the back of the primer off, locked the gun up, fire formed the web area of the brass around the barrel. I would call those all indications or things to watch out for.
I'll tell you the mistake I made a few years ago that I never publicized. Yeah, thank you, Mike. That I never publicized, and I forgot that I had some unique in my powder measure, and I put some WC-844 on top of it and started reloading 308 ammo.
With a little bit of unique and mixed into the batch.
Correct.
Ooh. How exciting was that?
First round, difficult extraction. Stop. No more. Stop. No more.
Wait, what counts as difficult for the listeners?
Difficult to lift the bolt.
So are we talking about like couldn't lift it with a pinky, or like you had to get a firm hand on it? Yeah.
I had to get a firm hand on it.
Okay. There's a reason I asked, though, because some people out there are under the mistaken impression that, like, if it's even the least little bit difficult to raise, they have pressure signs, and that's why I try to get you to quantify what difficult really was.
Well, it's like, you normally grab a hold of it when you're sitting there with the rifle to your shoulder. You grab it with the index finger, your forefinger, I should say, and your thumb of your shooting hand. Let me think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not left-handed. And you will grab it normally and just lift it up and work it back. Well, yep. I couldn't do that. I had to actually take the rifle down and put my hand on the action and pull it back. Once I got it to actually move, because of the fact I undogged the bolt, opened right up. Okay. Well, we did forget something. That Mike, you want us to go back or do the cartridge corner a little bit later?
Since we're rolling with this, let's just keep with the pressure signs.
Sounds good.
We need to discuss what you're going to look for in rifle ammo when you're looking at it. And more importantly, the one thing we never really cover, what you're going to look for in pistol ammo.
Yep.
Because from my experience, pistol doesn't seem to show it as readily as rifle does.
Well said.
So, okay, so some of your common signs in rifle, like you just expressed, bolt not moving like it should be with as much ease as it should be. What are some of the other signs that you could see when you're just starting to hit the pressure?
I can't say all, but in some cases you'll start to see flattened primers. Okay. I mean, in some of your higher pressure cartridges, you're going to see flattened primers even well short of a max pressure in that cartridge, but it's kind of variable.
Well, one pressure sign that is there, but it can also be confused with, is cratered primers.
Yep. Or pierced primers.
Pierced primers are a bad sign. Very bad. Pierced primers is a bad pressure sign. But cratered primers, and that's where the metal actually extrudes up around the firing pin, can also be a sign of a worn firing pin hole.
Mm-hmm.
Where the edges of the firing pin hole should be sharp and square, they're more rounded, and they're wear because of the back pressure of the cartridge. So, it's difficult to tell. You can't trust a cratered primer alone. Pierced primer, I agree with you. That's a bad sign.
Pierced primer means stop shooting that ammo and go tear it down.
That's right. And by the way, I wanted to thank your dad, Carl. I really appreciate the fact that you gave us a go-ahead about throwing you under the bus for this ammo problem that you had. It's educational for all of us, and that's exactly why I talked about the mistake I made, mixing rifle powder and pistol powder in my reloads without knowing about it, reloading it up, and so on and so forth. It's an educational process. We all make mistakes, and every so often, well, thanks, Carl. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, not he's my father, but I mean, I echo that. He did exactly what he taught me as a kid. When you goof something up, admit you made a mistake and fix it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's done that. So, but back to topic. That everything you're describing sounds appropriate on a bolt action. I would argue on a semi-auto though, you're actually going to be looking at the case head for a lot of your pressure signs. When you start seeing like extractor marks or ejector marks on the case head, when you start seeing deformation of the rim of the cartridge, those are all signs that your extraction ejection cycle is occurring much more violently than it should, and that's almost always related back to the volume and the volume of the gas coming through the gas system and or recoil if it's a recoil operated firearm.
The other thing is, I wanted to append on to what you just said, Phil. The signs are extremely similar to what we have in bolt action, but the problem with the semi is the leverage isn't there compared to what we have in our bolt guns. The leverage to open the chamber is what I'm talking about. If you have a chamber that won't open in a semi, you done goofed up real bad.
Yeah. But in my experience, I mean, if you look for those marks around the case head on a semi-auto, and most of my experience in semi-autos is based around AKs, ARs. But in both of those cases, you start seeing deformation of the rim and of the case head, you got a problem with your ammo.
What he means by deformation is wiping of the brass on the bolt face or wiping of the brass from the bolt face. You can actually see extractor marks. I'm not extractor marks, but for the extractor groove, and you can also see ejection port marks from the bolt face where the ejection pin comes out of the bolt face. If you start seeing metal extruding back into that ejector port, you got to back off, man. You're fixing to bust something. If that's nothing else, you're fixing to bust your own face.
Yeah, but to that end, I have actually seen brass where you could plainly see where the ejector had been on the rim of that brass because it had actually peeled it back very slightly.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I lump all those things in under the same category when you're talking about AKs, ARs, semi-automatic rifles. If you start seeing anything on the case head or on the rim that doesn't look right, I would equate that to hot ammunition and investigate further.
Okay, I'm going to take and throw one at Mike here on this too. Mike, you got 5 reloaders in this podcast right now, and only one of them reloads shot shell regularly, and that's you.
Mm-hmm.
What about pressure signs on shot shell? I'm sorry, Travis, didn't know about you. What about pressure signs on shot shell ammo?
That's kind of a weak point for me because I've never gotten to that point. But some of you get your primer issues. From what I know, and like I said, my knowledge is limited. We're still going to have somebody that's got a lot of experience. One thing I have seen though is where the plastic goes into the brass, that bulges out sometimes.
Are you saying about the primer that the primer flash or the primer hole, the hole for the primer pocket, it becomes oversized?
It can, but more often than not, you still get a flattening of a primer just like you would with a rifle in a pump or a brake action, or a bolt. The semi-auto is going to act a lot like a regular semi-auto would, so you're not going to see a lot. But sometimes you get over expansion in the brass area too. So shotgun shells are really low pressure to begin with. So you really got to do something wrong to get the pressure up. I mean, your powder charges are looking at 8 to 11,000 psi.
Wow, that is low. Travis, you want to say something?
Well, I just pulled out some examples out of my scrap brass pile. So a couple weeks ago, I was doing some testing on some new 300 blackout ammo, and I got some significant overpressure signs. So I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but you can see primer right there. Primer came out of 1, and you can hopefully see ejector swipe marks on there. and then a flattening of the primer and some swipes on that one. Especially with a semi-auto, you're definitely, like Phil was saying, that's the first thing you're gonna see is you're gonna see the ejector and extractor swipes. Then you'll see that where the primer just comes out.
Wow. This is brass that you found, Travis?
No, these are mine. I was doing some testing with some 300 blackout on some steel.
Ooh. So you must have intentionally loaded them damn hot.
I did. I wasn't expecting that.
Okay. Well, we're going to throw you under the bus too, Travis.
Mm-hmm.
We all screw it up. Jason got it here a few weeks ago, so we'll leave him alone.
Travis, they didn't really focus in well, so maybe if you've got like a piece of paper you can put up.
Yeah. So this first one, I'll show you the flattened primer. And that one actually looks like it almost punctured the primer. It actually did. I can see daylight through there.
There you go.
So if I get it in the light, you should be able to see the swipe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right there. And if I could shine a flashlight, it actually did puncture.
Yeah.
And this one's got some really significant swipe, extractor, ejector.
Well, you can see
Mark
the
on
fact that
there.
it's shiny. It got slammed into the bolt pretty hard. Yeah, it doesn't. That one doesn't want to focus. So.
Well, what
Yeah.
happens under that pressure, what happens is the material of the brass is actually being reformed. Like if you take a hammer and beat on it.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Jim. You can say it more elegantly than I can. Can you explain exactly what's happening to the brass, how it becomes malleable and it kind of stretches, and that's why we're getting these swipes, is because it's actually malleable and filling in whatever voids?
Well,
Can you go into that a little better?
sure. It's a matter of, if you think of everything in this world is plastic, like those boxes behind Travis's left shoulder. They're ammo boxes. They're made out of plastic. Glass is plastic. Ceramic is plastic. Everything can be formed with enough pressure. Everything can be reformed. And what's happening is there is a certain pressure limit, and it's about 60 to 75,000 psi, that the brass starts to change shape. And I'm talking about the solid case head, guys. I'm talking about the material in the case wall itself. You know, the stuff that you can't see when you're looking at it edgeways. That material is being put under pressure this way, in the directions of my fingers. Okay, it's being put under pressure from the wall of the chamber, but it's also being put under pressure from the gas molecules. And it's being pushed hard enough, just like a child pushes their modeling clay into a die, into a form, or just like you're squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, you're actually forming the brass, reforming the brass under pressure. Nothing more than simple pressure. Where does the pressure come from? That damned overload that you have in your cartridge. That mixture of powder that I had in my rifle case, a mixture of Unique and WC-844, which is a hot damn powder to begin with. And then it's like when I got a sticky extraction on what should have been a really mild load, it was like, okay, well, Jim, it's time to stop. You made a mistake. What I'm talking about is nothing more than causing your brass to flow as if it were the plastic, as in this fork.
And that's exactly why we have to trim our rifle brass after we shoot it.
That's right, because it stretches, because of the forming of we're actually, think of a balloon in a glass jar. Inflating that balloon in the glass jar, what happens is the balloon simply conforms to the inner walls of the glass jar, just like a chamber in a rifle. And think of your brass cartridge as if it were a balloon. Same thing, same principle, except of course the pressure is way the hell higher. Human lungs might give you 5 psi, might, but that cartridge is being formed. If it's being reformed, you're probably looking at over 70,000 psi. You know, it's like most steel starts to give at about 100,000 psi. Some are a little harder. They'll go up to 125, 150,000 psi. I'm talking about reforming it. Well, you take and get a good old hot load. You fill a cartridge of rifle ammo with pistol powder. You might exceed 125,000 psi.
Yeah, over in the chat, Janito Clayhans, sorry if I butchered your name, he just pointed out, which is very true, if you have any lubrication on your cases, and that will create, how would you say it, Jim? It kind of would create a barrier. So when your case tries to expand, it's kind of like hydraulics. The lubrication won't, what
What
am I
happens?
trying to say, Jim?
The lubrication on the wall of the cartridge, on the outer wall of the cartridge, and on the inner wall of the chamber, what happens is the lubrication doesn't allow the cartridge to grip the wall of the chamber like it normally would on a good dry chamber, causing the pushback, everything to be pushed into the bolt face, which puts excessive pressure on the bolt locking lugs.
Yes,
Okay.
thanks, Jim.
And that's going to expand in that chamber to every tenth of a thousandth that it can. It's going to expand excessively, dangerously, possibly even causing you may look like when you push back on that bolt face and them lugs are actually slightly peened and you can't get it to open up correctly. What's happened is you've actually exceeded the safety limits of the bolt itself. And Hanito is exactly right that, it looks like high pressure, but it's not. You can do it. You can do it, but you don't want to. That's why they tell you never lubricate your ammunition. Always keep it clean. Always keep it dry. Sorry, I kind of got carried away again. I guess it's just something I get really passionate about.
Well, this is all stuff we need to know, Jim.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Is there anything else to cover on rifle, or should we move on to pistol? Because I think there's going to be a lot of variants in there.
Good job, Tin Man. Thank you. Appreciate the confession. He once double charged with 13 grains of red dot, 26 grains of red dot, and oh my God, and a 303 British. He said, "Yeah, you're lucky that the 303 British was such a damn good rifle." Thank you, Paul. Mr. Nelson, I appreciate that. He said that brass flows at 80,000 psi. Paul, you got a good point about get a good micrometer and measure case heads and compare to factory. What he's talking about, I wish I had a case here with me. I'm going to use this empty. Well, it's not empty, but what he's talking about, I'm going to bring the camera up to myself. If you don't mind, Mike, put it over on me or whatever. What he's talking about is taking your micrometer, sorry about jiggling the camera, and measuring the head of the case right here where this pencil point is, but not at the rim. Measuring the case head up here, not the case rim, not down here at the case rim, up here. But you got to measure it to the 10th of an inch, 10th of a thousandth of an inch. And if you factory ammunition normally expands the case head about 0.0002 thousandths of an inch, 2/10 of a thousandth. Somebody write that in the chat for me. Exactly what I'm talking about. 3 zeros and then the number 2. And what you do is you actually measure that. And if your reloads measure up to about the same as factory ammunition, well, then you're good to go. If you're getting 3 or 4 tenths, you better back off and double check things to make sure you're not. And that would be the same would hold true, especially true for handgun ammo, because handgun ammo is like what Mike said. Shotgun ammo is mild, somewhere between 10 and 15,000 psi, and 15,000 is considered a hell of a hot load. Handgun ammo goes what 20 20 to 25, 20 to hot load on handgun ammo is what, 35,000? Yeah, I'm keeping Mike busy, poor guy.
I mean, the highest
anyway.
pressure. You're asking what's the high pressure for handgun?
Yes.
Highest
I'm
pressure
going to say
cartridge I know of. Go ahead.
I'm going to say 35,000.
I think you might be understating that.
Yep, you are.
The highest pressure pistol cartridge I know is 460 Smith & Wesson.
And?
Hang on. Google only goes so fast. 65,000 max.
Yeah, okay, but that's an exception too. You're also talking about handguns that are built for that. I'm talking about 357 Magnum for. Let's stick with something standard.
Yeah, 44 is about 40,000.
Okay.
35,000 for a 3.7.
Yeah. So
35 to 40K.
Shotguns. Back to that for a quick second. I went digging, and Sammy specs. Typically a 10 gauge is about 11,000. 12 gauge is 11.5. Except for you get the 3.5, it's a 14,000. Your highest standard pressure for a 3-inch is your 410 at 13.5. So, but yeah, 14,000 for a 3.5 inch, which is why it hurts the heck out of your shoulder. So, but the steel in the barrels, unless you're talking Damascus, is capable of handling 3 to 4 times that pressure, especially in your modern shotguns. So you're not going to usually typically see a lot of signs. So, you're usually not going to, especially with a wad and everything, you're not going to really see a chance of a double or triple charge because your wad won't fit, your shot won't fit. The way the shot shells are put together is it's a pretty snug fit. If you screw anything up and double charge it or triple charge it, you're going to be looking, you're going to be looking at that easily spottable. Yeah, you're usually going to see some mild pressure. So, but
yeah, you won't be able to crimp it. It won't. You'll catch it pretty quick.
Yeah, you'll catch it really quick, even on a progressive, because their progressives aren't going to have enough force to try and shove that. So, picture your resizing brass, and all of a sudden you come across a crimped in primer, and you know how the force needed is quite a bit more than a normal. It's kind of like that. You would really realize you're trying to crank this thing down to get it to crimp, and it won't crimp. So,
yeah, especially if you're on one of those lead load-alls.
Yeah. So those are really easy to tell. But even most of your mechs and your Ponzness and everything else out there, it's pretty easy to tell because especially with shot shells, you're literally handling it every single time except for progressives. Because you're moving it from station to station to station. So it's a lot easier to tell with a shot shell. If you do continually load excessive pressures, then you're going to start to break things on the gun itself, like crack the wood stock, or you're going to be looking at stuff within the action and the trigger group. So you're going to wind up with that first. Eventually, if you get high enough, you will get some of your... To give you an idea, they tried to blow up an 870. So they started by firing 20,000 PSI in an 870 barrel. Nothing happened. Then they started jumping it up by 5,000 PSI. They hit 50,000 PSI and nothing still. Finally, they hit 55 and they finally blew up a shotgun barrel.
You mean it's not like in the cartoons?
Oh, it did. Literally. It banana peeled just like in the cartoons when somebody sticks their finger in the end of the barrel. That's what a shotgun barrel will do when it blows up. If you've ever seen any of the barrels that have an obstruction, or some idiot drops a 20 gauge shell in there and then throws a 12 behind it in a 12 gauge barrel. So, but I'm talking 55,000 psi in a Remington 870 barrel. In order to generate that type of pressure, that's a 5-time charge of powder. You wouldn't get the wad in the case or in the hull. So that kind of really gives you an idea of how serious you have to screw up on a shot shell. Now, Damascus barrels are a whole different story. You have a shotgun with Damascus barrels, either light powder, light charge black powder loads, which they were designed to handle, or don't load it at all. I really do not recommend running smokeless powder in Damascus barrels. But yeah. So for shot shells, you're really not gonna see any pressure signs until you get way too far. And it's not really easy.
So, Jim, just for your info on your favorite caliber, one of your favorite calibers, 357 Magnum, 158 grain jacketed hollow point
Right.
with powder. Well, I won't even say with powder. The highest pressure in the book here is almost 43,000 psi. 140 grain jacketed FTX is 45,000 psi.
Okay, but those are also maximum charges too.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably approximating factory ammo in pressure. Even so, it's still considerably less than what you see in a rifle cartridge. You know, average on a 308, what, 52, 55 psi? 55K psi? Something like that.
Yeah, on 180 grain, it's about 58, 59, right in there.
It's right up there. And that's also 308 as opposed to 7.62, which is a milder case, milder load. Sorry.
Yep.
Hit the wrong button. Tried to mute myself and turned off the camera.
Yeah, loading shotgun shells can be pretty fun, though.
So, Paul Nelson said, and I didn't even think about this, powder increase is exponential in pressure rise. So, no, you wouldn't have to have a 5 times charge to hit 55 psi or 55,000 psi. But you're talking at least, depending on the powder, you're talking at least a double charge, more than likely at least a triple charge to get that hot. And like I said, unless you're literally throwing a slug on top of the powder itself without a wad, you're not going to be able to do it and still be able to get it crimped.
It's still an experience I wouldn't care to have.
No, I wouldn't want to. It'd be like firing a 10 gauge single shot, like Thunderbolt's done.
Yeah.
No fun.
Well, you want to move on? Have we beat that topic enough?
Well, we didn't really dive into pistol.
The signs are pretty much the same, Mike.
But do they show up as easy?
I'm sorry, you both spoke up at the same time.
I know, bad habit. Go ahead, Mike.
No, we all do it. So, but do they show up as easily and prevalently as rifle, considering most of your pistols are going to be a semi-auto? A revolver, or the occasional single shot, you're probably going to be able to tell easily. But what about with the prevalence of semi-autos?
Well, sticky extraction.
Mm-hmm.
We've had that. We went into that with Carl's father, or Phil's father, Carl. Yeah. And with the revolver, I've had sticky extraction with some damned hot loads, and I've had sticky extraction. My Thompson Center Contender, when I put up that load that I won't publish.
Mm-hmm.
I told you everybody about it because I don't know what the load was. I won't do it again. But anyway, the point is, the signs are similar in the non-semi-autos. What I would watch for is how vigorously your ammunition cycles your gun in a semi-auto. If it really slams that bolt back, well, you've done something wrong. Because that much setback, like with a 1911, it can actually start stretching the toggle link. What is that link on the bottom of the barrel called?
Barrel link.
Thank you, barrel link. It'll actually start stretching that.
Okay.
That link actually, the pin, the takedown pin for the slide catch pin actually links through that, and you start cranking that barrel hard enough, it's going to stretch that barrel link.
I'd follow that.
Say again, Phil?
No, go ahead.
No, say it.
Oh, I'd also follow it by saying, watch your firearm for a mechanical peening of parts. Like whatever two surfaces hit at the rearmost travel of your slide, if you start seeing parts peening and banging together, understand that in a normally operating semi-automatic handgun, your recoil spring should slow that slide down most of the way before it reaches the end of travel. So if it's reaching the end of travel at the velocity that it's peening metal, something's wrong.
Good point. And we'll go back to the 1911 for another example, since everyone's so familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
The locking lugs on the top. If you start to see those corners rounding off, not from wear, I'm talking about the metal moving back from the corner, moving backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Metal actually moving and creating a burr, like Phil said, it's peening the metal. If you're actually causing that metal to move back away from the corner consistently, you're running hot loads. You need to knock it off.
And I don't know how to explain like what part of a 1911 this is, but for those of you that have actually disassembled one, you'll understand the portion underneath the barrel that actually interfaces with the barrel link itself. If you start seeing peening between that and the portion in the frame that's like at the end of the I don't know how the hell to explain it. I wish I had a 1911 in my hand to show you on camera. But the point remains, if you start seeing two pieces peening themselves together in a semi-automatic handgun, it ain't right. That's all. That's really all there is to it.
If I think of it, I'll bring my 1911 down for next week.
Yeah. You know what? Give me 2 minutes. Continue. I've got one in the other room.
Go ahead.
Totally jealous. All right, so one of the things that you can get with pistol, which you would get with everything else, is your case head bulging, your primers. Now, so if you're having feeding issues, should you rule it strictly to overpressure or underpressure? Or should you maybe be looking at the firearm as well?
All of the above.
Okay. I'd like to thank Paul for that question. Paul in the chats mentioned that sometimes weak springs can cause problems too. So I wanted to make sure we address that, so people aren't thinking that a failure to feed or some excessive wear is strictly caused by them running hot loads. Whereas if your recoil springs are junk.
Failure to feed can be caused by an underload.
Yeah.
Simply because your bolt the bolt itself doesn't cycle back far enough to capture the next round and shove it up into the chamber. So like I said, it can be a combination of all three. It could be underloads, hot loads.
Yeah.
Could be all of the above at one time.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, what do you got to say on pressure on, like you just said, like on a rifle load that is undercharged? What kind of pressure signs can you get off of that?
If it's undercharged, you're not going to get pressure signs. Now, wait, I don't want this to be confused with what they call detonation loads. They're under loads, but you're using like 20 or 30% insufficient amounts of a slow burning powder like IMR 4831. If you're using something like that, you can actually cause the powder to explode, detonate.
That's
That's what we're talking about now. That's different, and that can't be duplicated and has yet to be duplicated in a laboratory. And that's why we tell people to stick with published loads. I realize that the shooter's trying to take and shoot a milder load for his wife, trying to take and put a 125 grain bullet in his 308 so she can shoot, and wants to reduce it. And so automatically you think it's linear. The less you put in there, the better it'll be. Within published limits, that's correct. However, if you get into underloads that are dangerous, the powder can actually detonate. It doesn't burn like it normally does. It all explodes at one time. And the biggest problem with that dangerous combination is the fact that it has not, to the best of my knowledge, it has not been duplicated in a laboratory yet.
Well, is this where a lot of guys kind of get in trouble, Jim, when they're trying to do subsonic loads in like a 308 and they're using pistol powder?
Mm-hmm.
It could be if you're using too much. If you're filling your case with bullseye, you're asking for you don't want to do it. 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 Stick with the Lyman cast data. I have run 180 grain bullets out of my cast, I'm getting excited, excuse me. I have run 180 grain cast bullets through my Ruger M77, and they worked very well. In fact, I was surprised. I disrespected the load and didn't hold the rifle hard enough, and 180 grain cast bullet load actually kicked me hard enough to make me say, ow. Surprised me, simply because I just wasn't holding it firmly enough in my shoulder. My own son at the time said, Dad, you okay? You never do that. Well, I did. That was another mistake I made. Phil, what do you got for us, buddy?
Okay, what I did was take my 1911 and I disassembled it and reassembled it by putting the barrel herald pin, the cross pin in to hold the barrel link in place so it can articulate.
Right.
Now, the surface Jim's referring to is these locking lugs right up here on top. If you start seeing the forward edge of these start kind of rolling back or developing a curvature, because this particular 1911, and I don't know how well y'all can see it on the camera, but this 1911 is 13 years old. God knows how many thousand rounds. I don't know. I didn't keep track. But this is a very well-worn 1911, and these locking lugs are almost sharp enough to cut your finger on. They're still as they came out of the factory. The portion of the gun in particular I was talking about watching for peening is this surface right here on the barrel, and it will tend to impact this portion. If you look down the slide right here where it makes this abrupt upward turn, right on the air side of the feed ramp, when the gun is fully out of battery and the slide's at full extension, those two are going to be right there next to each other. You start seeing peening on these parts, and that's because they are banging together at a velocity that is inappropriate. Now, that's 1911.
Phil,
Yep.
One more thing. Show me that barrel again. Just the barrel, please. Okay. Now move your fingers of your right hand and put one finger on the breech face right there at the end of the barrel. Yes, right there.
Top of the barrel hood.
That's where the barrel meets the breech face. That if you peen that, that's the same thing what we were talking about.
Yep.
That's where peening is going to be. That actually slams into the face meets the face of the bolt face of the slide.
Yep.
Now you have to Phil, take the barrel out.
Hang on.
Take the barrel out. Show me the top of the barrel slide. Show me the top of the slide. Hold it up vertically, please. Right there. Now, Phil, angle the slide the other way.
Other way?
I'm sorry, you had it right the first time. Okay, right there, that little black spot that you can see above the firing pin hole is where that barrel extension meets the bolt face. That's the bolt face for the 1911. Those two pieces should never be peened. They should be always sharp and square.
Yep. And that's the barrel in the slide
right
back
there.
in battery.
Exactly. That's where the barrel that's where the barrel actually meets.
Yeah.
Where the red dot is on the barrel.
But
Phil's red dot is on the barrel.
That's actually a tactical light.
No. I'm talking about you had like a Sharpie mark on the tang on the barrel extension. It looked like it in the screen. If it's,
know.
it must be something I saw.
You know what it was? It was this red light on my microphone reflecting off of it.
Okay.
But the thing of it is that, I mean, I know a few different firearms, and I can't tell you what to look out for on every single gun out there. But suffice to say, you ought to be familiar enough with your firearms from just regular cleaning and teardown that when you start seeing metal moving or getting peened or getting beat up or chipped or cracked, that should be a warning sign to you. And because the majority of your handguns are recoil operated, that's what you're going to start seeing. Is you're going to start seeing the recoil force of the round discharging exceeding the tolerance built into the gun via the recoil springs and camming surfaces to slow the slide down. So if the slide's not slowing down when it reaches the end of travel, it's just going to start beating the gun apart. I mean, to me, that's the best pressure sign I can think of to tell you look out for on a handgun. Is when metal starts going places it's not supposed to, you done messed up, Aaron. Now let me try to put this 1911 back together. I'm going to mute my mic so you don't hear clanking metal.
Well, the thing is, too, if anyone's paying attention, you're going to see that we talk about similar locking lugs, bolt faces, barrels, all those sort of things. And those parts are all common. There's a locking lug in the top of that 1911. There's a barrel bolt face in that slide of the 1911, just like we have a bolt face in our bolt action rifle. They have the same name, but of course they look far different. Meanwhile, Phil's trying to figure out how to take apart what he put together. And yes, I reversed my words. All right. Mike, have we satisfied your curiosity enough yet, sir?
Sure.
Well, then let's move on to the questions. Okay. I could take a hint. I think it's time for the Cartridge Corner.
You are correct, sir.
That sounded like clips taken directly from the old Rifleman television show, starring Chuck Connors. Jason?
Was it clips or magazines?
Magazines are what you read, Jason. Jiminy, we can't help ourselves.
I thought those were coloring books. I don't understand.
That's why they call you Knuckle Dragger.
Anyway, so, Jim?
Yes, and speaking of old cartridges, we had a request last week, and whoever requested a 243, we haven't forgot about you. It's coming. But this last week, somebody actually asked for an old cartridge called the 3840 that I have a small amount of experience with. Not much. I don't own a handgun in that caliber. But I have shot a 3840, and I'll tell you what, it's a handful. Because you're shooting a 401 diameter bullet, which goes anywhere between 200 and 180, 165, 140. And you're loading it in the old 4440 Winchester cartridge. The actual name of the cartridge is 3840 Winchester. Quote, it's actually a 40 caliber cartridge shooting 401 caliber bullets. The cartridge was introduced by Winchester in 1874 and derived from their 4440 Winchester. The cartridge was introduced for rifles, but in its reintroduction for cowboy action shooting, it has seen some popularity as a pistol cartridge. It is not particularly well suited to hunting larger game. I mean, we're talking black bear, or especially anything bigger than black bear. No, you don't even want to hunt black bear with that. But it was popular when it was introduced along with 4440 for deer hunting, which is a small, medium-sized game. Maybe wild pig, depending upon the size of the animal. You get a 400-pound boar, you better have yourself a full-fledged 308. But if you're going to shoot, say 200-pound or 150-pound animal or down, I wouldn't be afraid to use a 4440. It has been and can be used successfully on smaller game animals and for self-defense. Most of the loadings that you find in the books these days are intended for cowboy action and revolvers. History says it's unclear why the cartridge was introduced, as it is very similar to the 4440 from which it was derived. It has approximately 110 foot-pounds of less energy than the 4440, and a muzzle velocity about 110 feet per second, less than the 4440. The bullet differs by only 26 inches, 0.026 inches in bullet diameter, and about 20 grains less weight. The goal may have been to reduce recoil, maybe a ladies' load or something like that, while maintaining a similar bullet sectional density. One unusual design element of this cartridge is that the factory ammunition was loaded with a different case profile than the standard chamber for this cartridge. I'm saying that the chamber is actually different than the cartridge itself is in factory loadings. Factory ammunition has a much longer neck than the standard chamber. Most reloading dies are designed to fire brass to the chamber spec rather than that of the original factory ammunition case profile. Excuse me.
Jim, you're muted.
Yep. He forgot to unmute. So it's kind of funny because the sound effect I just randomly chose was actually an 1873 Chamberlain 4440. So
My apologies for not unmuting myself.
it's a lacquer.
Yep, you bet. The renewed interest in this caliber can be explained by the increasing popularity of cowboy action shooting and metallic silhouette shooting. Several single-action revolvers have recently been chambered for this cartridge, including the Ruger Vaquero. Most modern reloading data for this cartridge is found in the handgun section of reloading manuals, and that's where I'm going to stop reading because I don't want to bore everybody to tears. Mike, the rest of it is under the link in the show notes. The specs, I'll give you a couple specs. Bullet mass 180 grain, velocity 1160, muzzle energy 538 foot-pounds. It's respectable. I wouldn't want to catch one. But anyway, that's all the reading I'm going to do tonight. Sorry if I bored you. Invest in precious metals. Would that be lead and brass and occasionally a bit of nickel?
Yes.
Where'd you get the patch, Michael? You didn't tell us. Share.
Oh, this is one of the ones I picked up at the Patriot Patch Company booth at the Bullpup Shoot.
Nice. That's one I've not seen.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a pretty fancy, nice patch. So, not quite as nice as this one that I got at the same time.
Cycle of life.
Yep.
I like that.
Indeed.
Mike, did you ever finish your patch wall?
I've got more patches I got to put on it, but yeah,
that thing would have to be massive to take and accommodate every patch that that is going to come out of this company.
Yep. So I don't even have half of them.
So where did you get the Velcro to make the actual frame?
That's actually just felt. Picked it up from fabric store. And then the picture frame was one I found at St. Vinny's. It's an older style frame where what they would do is they would stretch the canvas over an inner frame, and then it would actually be held into the outer frame. And so that's what that is. So I just took the canvas off of it, stretched the felt over it, stapled it down, and then put it back in the bigger frame, and then started sticking patches on it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I want to make some for my reloading room.
Yeah. What some people I know are doing is just getting the chipboard and then stretching felt over that.
I have a question, if you don't mind, or would you rather I wait till the end of the show?
No, you can go ahead and ask.
I would like all the listeners to tell us if they like that intro to the Cartridge Corner. And if so, would you like us to do it all the time?
Yeah.
That's kind of a cue. I know Travis does. He's already said so. But kind of a cue as to telling me, Jim, it's time for the Cartridge Corner.
It's like, wake up, Jim. It's time for the
You
Cartridge Corner.
You bet. I was sound asleep. Can't you tell? Yeah, you guys got me going tonight. I get kind of passionate when it comes to how things are put together in the ammunition and how it works in our firearms.
So, all right. Wow, hour and a half almost. So I think we're going to call it for tonight, gang.
Well, I got one more thing then, Mike.
Yep.
It's time for another giveaway. So what I have in this nice little box here, and guys, these are my absolute favorite, and I've been saving this one. This one, if you haven't gotten in on any of these giveaways, make sure you get on this one, because this one's a real dandy. Okay, so this is from my buddy Wayne over at mightyarmory.com. And if you guys use like a Lee Universal Decapper or something, these ones are way better. So let me just unwrap it here. So I know that he's done a lot of testing on his stuff, and I know I've talked to him about these, and I'll open. So I don't open your guys's. Let me grab mine real quick. So they have these really nice heavy-duty decapping pins. And I know I've seen and talked to him. These take 650 pounds PSI to bend the tip on these decapping pins. The nice thing is they come with I believe two pins maybe in here. So if you do happen to bend one, which I haven't yet, and I run it on my 1050 all the time, you got an extra one to replace it. So it's got a nice body here. It's got a lock ring. The top just unscrews by hand. You can see how easy that goes in.
Travis, that thing looks like he could actually pierce the brass head.
Yeah, so a lot of it's funny you say that, because in the 1050, I've had a couple of times where I'm just going and not paying attention to the number one station, which is where I have my decapper, and a piece of brass can go sideways or tip over, and this pin will just puncture right through the brass, no problem. Like I say, I have not had to replace my pin yet, and I've had it for a year and a half. I say he's got a brand new, it's only been out for a couple months. He's got some really nice sizing dies, and I think they're the best on the market. And that's what I just set my 1050 up with earlier today to size all my stuff with. But go over to mightyarmory.com, check out his stuff. These, every once in a while, these universal decappers will go on sale. But whatever they are on the website, I highly recommend this right here. So like I say, go to reloadingpodcast.com, put in the subject line giveaway, tell Mike what press you guys have, what cartridges you like to reload on, and one of you guys will receive a Mighty Armory Universal Decapper. And I say, please go over to all these guys that have been giving us products. If you don't buy something, fine, but just go over to their sites and please tell them you heard about them from the Reloading Podcast. Thank them. That way they know that they are getting, some traffic, people looking at their stuff, so we can continue to give stuff away to you guys.
Nice. Very nice. Is that body aluminum, Travis, or is it steel?
So on this one, it is aluminum. If you go over to his site, he's got a couple different bodies. Like he's got one for a 50 BMG. I would assume that one's steel, but he's got different colors. So if you got if you want a red one or a blue one, he's got different colors, black. But these ones are the universal decapper. The body is aluminum, but I do know that he has one just like this. Like the nice thing with this, if I could show you on my press, I've got one of these decappers in station 1, and then it's basically kind of the same body. And for the 1050, the next station is a primer pocket swager, and it's kind of the same setup. So you can put in a different insert in here and use it as a primer pocket backer on your 1050. And if you wanted to, you could switch things around. You could take the pins out of one, put it in the other. I'm pretty sure that's what I do anyway. But it's the machining on these is beautiful. You guys gotta check them out. And like I say, if you guys run a universal decapper, I know these are a little bit more than a Lee, but these to me are really worth the money.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
All right. So reloadingpodcast@gmail.com. And send us put in giveaway in the memo line. Tell us what type of press. Tell us your favorite calibers. And we'll get that drawing done. Now, the drawing won't be till Friday the 12th because we want to get the episode out and posted for a bit. So, but it'll be Friday the 12th.
Yeah, and I just picked up, I haven't told you guys yet, but I did pick up a couple more guys that wanted to donate stuff to give away. So we got some more pretty cool stuff coming.
Cool. All right. Sounds like a plan. I want to thank everybody who swings by firearmsradio.tv and hits up the Brownells and Amazon links. I want to thank everybody who tunes in live every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central. Usually we start about 7 to 7:05, depending. If it's going to be later than that, we'll let you know. But also want to thank everybody who sends us emails to reloadingpodcast@gmail.com. Sends us text messages or voicemails to 608-467-0308. Hits us up on Facebook, leaves messages, comments in the notes on YouTube for the live podcast, or goes over to firearmsradio.tv/reloadingpodcast and leaves notes there on the show notes. We do attach show notes to all of them episodes on the Firearms Radio page, so you can see the full ones there. If you have any questions that you need answered right away, find the Reloading Room on Facebook. You can search the wealth of knowledge that's been shared there over the years without actually having to become a member. If you want to ask a question that you need an answer to that you don't find an answer by searching, then you do have to join. Also, you can go over to the Reloading Podcast page on Facebook. We post a lot of stuff there. Otherwise, you can join the Reloading Podcast group.
That group is a closed group. If for those of you that want to protect your privacy, is you don't want it published on your timeline and all that whole Tommy rot.
Exactly. So that one, yeah, that one's kind of so you can interact with us there, and then like Jim said, it's privacy settings are a little more restrictive, so that way, if you have people you don't want to know that you are a reloading nut, that would be the one for you to join. So we thank everybody who continues to support us. We thank all the Patreons. Been talking to Dylan all week, so that's coming up soon. I'm not going to tell when, so, but that's in the works. So for the Patreons, and just want to thank everybody that continues to tune in and support the podcast. So in whatever way you do. And on that note, keep your brass shiny.
Keep your powder dry.
It's not a matter of if, but when.
Buy it cheap and stack it deep.
And squeeze. Don't yank that trigger.
Squeeze.